Hello and welcome into Limited Time Only, brought to you by Sorare Data. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined once again by Keith Jameson, GatorGuy231. Taking his sunglasses off, trying to get a little professional here. Yeah, you're inside. Doesn't even look like you have any windows.
There are no windows.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you to everybody for joining us. I'm going to give ZM Star, who is not the first comment that I see here for some reason. That would be Jordan Wallace, who said limited boom incoming. But I sent ZM Star's comment to Keith because I think he commented yesterday, if not the day before. Oh, he said it was yesterday, saying that they won 2 rewards using AAA lineups from the pick scores. So he's asking, is that a win or not? We'll get into that. Don't worry. But thank you everyone for joining us. Olympic Manager says hello when Reynoso. Sounds like it's soon.
Look at my gallery layer. We might talk about that.
Oh, we should talk about that.
I'm rainbowing some Reynoso.
That's not a color that... Oh, did you get some limited Reynosos? Oh?
Based on our subject today. So yes, we'll talk more.
Love it. Love it.
We don't even know.
Siri Harrison, hello. Johannatan, Blue Tomatoes, Mike Baston, what is up? Sora. Aaron Walker, Didi Sorare. This is a lot of people, and I apologize for anyone who was after that. Shaforkle, hi all people, and Laird, hello. Shaforkle, I feel bad. So his name is obviously not Shaforkle. And I said this during a stream, and now this is like a bit that I have, and I'm sorry, Shackle, who I assume it is, but I have to say Shaforkle from now on. I'm like really into sticking to bits, so I'm sorry.
So can I make an admission, Laird? So obviously, you and you have become really good friends with Sorare and things like that. But I listen to almost every show before doing more of these. So I'm seeing some of these names that you say on the strategy show and on off topic, but I see them and I know how you say them, but I don't realize that it's that person until you say it out loud.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear what you're saying. Yep. It's, I mean, let's be honest. I'm hardly an expert in name pronunciation. So even just stuff like that, I'm not going to be able to. Shout out to Aaron Walker, who pointed out that my screen still showed as PSU fans too. And I don't want anybody to be confused of who they're listening or watching. So it's not Sean Newsham. Mike Baston with the hashtag bring Laird back. I appreciate that, Mike. I saw that on Twitter. Definitely appreciate the call not to have Sean on anymore. Or at least just less Sean. That's all. Andy Black. What's up, Andy? Great lunchtime content instead of extra time. I like that. Scosmo, hello. It's everyone. Everyone's here. So yeah. And now we found Sean's burner account. Benny96 saying to bring him back. Anyway.
And Sean said he would not be caught on a limited show, but now
if there was ever a show Sean would never be on, it's this one.
But now we know he's here. That's Benny.
That's right. And Johannatan said, ask how I served a suspension. The idea that PSU fans too, Sean Newsham, would have any sort of bearing on what I do in terms of a suspension or anything is hilarious. So it was fine. Anyway, we're here to talk about limiteds because that's what we do here on Limited Time Only. I realize there are a lot of people here who kind of just watch all of our stuff. And whether they play limiteds or not, I appreciate you guys being here. Please hit the like button on the video. But the point of this show is to kind of increase the number of people who can learn how to use Sorare data to figure out their limited strategies. Everything's going to be different week to week. Keith and I kind of introduced it last week. We jokingly said that if the show is only 30 minutes, then so be it. We went 60. We probably could have gone 6 hours. But I'm going to try to keep it like our other shows around an hour just so you guys don't get bored. So, Keith, I completely abandoned what we did last week. I didn't make lineups. I didn't make a lineup for this past game week based on pick scores or anything. I did tell you that I probably should have bought a goalkeeper. So for those of you who are unaware, I sold most of my limiteds a while ago, but I kept some of them. And the ones I kept, I could put in a lineup with a combination of cards that I bought from last week in order how I was trying to make a 5-player AAA lineup for what was the amount? $35. Mm-hmm. And so I used some of those cards and some of the ones that I had to try to win something this past weekend, and I told Keith, I said, Keith, I should buy a goalie because the goalie that I have, Andres Fernandez, is not that great this game week. And I'm like, it probably doesn't matter. And 460 points later, with a 5 from Fernandez, I probably should have bought.
And you know what the worst thing, Laird? Like, you know this, or I think you know this, but the top goal kick. So we'll probably go into it, but I decided just to go all in for Golden 270 and buy the best team I possibly could.
Oh, that's right.
So there was one goalie that stuck out this week, and it was Odysseus, who was a minus gazillion favorite. I think that's understating it. And he wasn't that expensive because the season's over. I'm trying to think of dollars, but I paid 0.032, so I want to say maybe $55. Let's call it $55. And million favorite, he drops 88. So like if you would have like looked at things, pick score, anything like that, Odysseus probably would have been who you go to, and you win All-Star with Odysseus.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the price pool. I'm assuming it's like Mbappe or Holland or something like that.
For the
limit
for All-Star?
Yeah, it has to be one of those two.
All-Star. Keith, it's pretty easy to find out.
This is true. There's our not new feature, Mike Bastion. Do we get a new feature today or tomorrow?
Mike Bastion, there is going to be. Did I promise new features? I don't know if I did, but we
okay. ZM starts
something today. We have office hours tomorrow. It got moved to tomorrow. Okay. Looks like first place for All-Star Limited was Erling Haaland.
Okay.
Who is a good player. I've heard of him.
Georgi Petrovic second. Oh my God.
Petrovic second, Salah, Kane, and there's a Odysseus there. That's for All-Star Limited. But you did not play him in All-Star Limited. You played him in Golden 270.
No. Yeah. I don't even know who won. Let's see what 270 was. I didn't look at that because I didn't.
Oh, it was insane. Daniel Cooper actually just dropped this in the chat. Mbappe Limited, Kimmich Rare.
And see, okay.
That's why you play Golden 270, which we could never do again.
And that's, by the way, too, like where this is coming from was like me maneuvering back out of those guys. Because like if I was just going purely off of strategy of like valuation and things like that long term, like I would not have ended up on the guys, but Benfica was a gazillion favorite. They had a few guys that made a lot of lineup constructions work. And I'm like, hey, I think there's a really good shot this is at least up there. So let me give it a go because I thought the rewards for this Golden, I had a feeling they would be ridiculous, and they were.
Yeah, so we were kind of talking about it that even if you didn't normally play limiteds, if there was ever a time to buy a lineup, it was for this. And there it is. Like the upside was literally a 1.8 ETH worth of cards.
Yeah, nice spin.
With the 1.5 Kimmich and then Mbappe. And then the Haaland Limited and Kevin De Bruyne Rare for second. Yeah. Like that's insane. And so it just like the rewards were nuts.
Just on the view, even fourth, Harry Kane Limited and Meikawa. Rare. Like, that's half an ETH, probably. Yeah.
It's great.
Insane. And I just added up. I just added up what I did if we want to go to it. I added up like this very with the fingers, but like 0.12, 0.13. So maybe like, let's just call it $225, $250 probably spent. And I mean, you know, what we talked about last week too, which we'll kind of go into here shortly, but it's not like I'm out $250.
Yeah.
Like they all have value, and the kind of the topic I really wanted to go over when you were like, I don't know what to talk about. I'm like, well, here's a really interesting thing that I'm kind of going through right now. This is what we should have called it, Laird. List or trade.
List or trade, yeah.
List or trade.
Yeah, not play at all. I just wanted to quickly look at the impact players from Golden Cap 270. Maybe I shouldn't be that surprised that Eduardo was the most popular player. I'm very surprised, that Jonas Hoffman was the second most.
He was not on my list.
As he banged 100. I had him in that All-Star Limited lineup that I had that ended up being okay.
And then we see the Benfica boys, which is what I expected. Rafa, Odysseus.
Yeah, Rafa, Odysseus, Otamendi. Grimaldo is surprisingly... Did I miss him?
Yeah, Control F it maybe. I don't see him. You think people were like scared of using him because of the transfer rumor, or scared of buying him because of the transfer?
I don't know, because it felt like he was like
He was the best player, in my opinion. He was my captain.
56 people.
See,
That's
and
wild.
that was why, in my opinion, Laird, like that's like why this type of thing. Because I know Sean made a comment to me in typical Sean fashion, like of course, like pretty much like I can't believe that you're buying a whole team for this. And literally, I said what you did. If there was ever a week for it, this is the week because it's boost up rewards, like. And he's like, and you're just in Benfica, and he's like, that's just going to be so chalk. You need to differentiate. And while I agreed, that type of moment there just shows like everything, even back to DFS. If you play the best plays, sometimes it's not obvious to everybody. Because like to me, Grimaldo was the single best play on the entire slate. Or the entire
so Johannes points out that Grimaldo's cost was really high, but
Morata,
to be honest,
that was the problem.
But there were like places to effectively like save.
Well, Morato was
With
where
Morata, right?
If you wanted to pull mine up, but Antonio Silva for Benfica was suspended, and so Morato, who when he's had chances in the past to start, was going to start for a gazillion favorite, and he was on like a 28.
Right. Yeah. I remember. I think that's exactly what it was. 28.
He was on like a 28, and once you put a 28 in there, if like you go to my lineup, I don't know if you're close enough there, but if you go to my lineup, and Odysseus was only at 50, which for a goalkeeper is fairly like okay.
Yeah, that's not bad. It's not prohibitive, especially in 270.
Right, but once you plug in that 28, like you can do so much. Like if you look at my lineup, it's pretty ridiculous, and I already got kind of off the cocaine trafficker. I hadn't gotten it, but I mean, look at like that lineup. Just it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and Ramos on the gazillion favorite was like a 42 L15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it allowed me Grimaldo as captain, and it allowed me Chrome.
Blue Tomato as soon as Grimaldo guy 231.
Blue Tomatoes. I actually won a Grimaldo rare probably a month or two ago during my heater, and I remember messaging with Laird and Sean like, "Oh my god, like I love this card, but he's gonna move, and he's so I want to say he was like 3/4 of an ETH at that time. And it's like I have to sell him. Like it's just too expensive for one defender."
Yep. But I've actually won his limited twice.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
You sold it or traded it both times.
Both of them. Yeah. Didn't even think about it.
I traded him for my Reynosos, by the way. When we go to trade.
Let's check out Reynosos. So anyway, Mike Basson was saying, and I agree with this, that the best thing about Golden 270 was a lot of lesser known managers in the top 10.
Oh, I love that.
Because it was that kind of game week, and knowing that you could get pretty good teams in there, that I was just waiting to look up and just being like, oh, the podium was like Bellaman, Nanzo, and someone else. Not PSU fans too, because he isn't.
Well, I mean, that's like to Sean's point when he was like messaging me about like why to do it. He's like, this is like full scale going into DFS term GPP week. Like you kind of need to go off the wall. Like it's going to be so little. But to me, it was like the cost of entry, which we'll kind of go over this whole lister thing. Plus, I thought there was a significant knowledge gap. Like I thought I could use pick score and use my own knowledges to get ahead. That was worth a shot. And I'll tell you what, if nothing else, I've been saying this a lot, and I'm going to continue to say it about limited is in the strategies I'm doing. My God, I'm having a really awesome time building lineups. Like it's so fun.
It definitely scratches an itch.
Yeah. Well, because it's like what you said when you bought limiteds way, 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 way back when. It was all these guys that you couldn't buy at the rare level. And now you get to play with them. Like I haven't gotten a chance to play with a Grimaldo and celebrate him being on PKs and like dropping massive scores. And then like Promes, he was one of my lesser scorers. But like if you look at the match flow, they dominated. He had, he did everything you could expect him to. But then the craziest thing, I'm trying to pull it up. I don't know if I have it, but do you remember the lineup that I sent to you before the week started? I can't remember the guy, but I had done before I found out about Morato, which changed everything in my lineup. But I had I knew I wanted to play Grimaldo, knew I wanted to play Odysseus, knew I wanted to play Ramos, but I want to say it was Domp from Bundesliga.
Oh yeah, Jean-Luc Dompe. Or
What was the name of the second league French guy? I don't even know his name. And he dropped 100. I should sent you this lineup like days before. I don't even remember his name. I'll find it at some point. But like that would have. I almost wish I would have stayed with that because that would have been a fun lineup. I would not have won. Yeah, we'll find it here. Come on.
There's a lot of hundreds.
I know. So there it is. Livolent. He was a AAA, 99.9 on the left. Jeremy Livolent. And he was, look, pull up his player page. He is how much is that? $6?
$6. Yep.
Yep. He was $6. And Domp, I want to say it was like $5 or $6. And they were at the top of pick scores and they fit perfectly. And I was like, and they both were playing the worst team in the second division.
Mm-hmm. There's
Domp. Okay. And then if you search Livolent, either he's AAA or.
Oh, he fell to AA.
So he dropped to AA. At one point, he was AAA.
He should have been AAA by the outcome.
So all that being said, like that would have been fun. I would not have won first, so I don't have that regret in there by any means. So I think I would have finished like 18th or something like that. 3 minutes.
Dom took 3 minutes to get his decisive.
So he was the reason I didn't want to do that lineup. Because I brought this up last week. I'm always freaked out when teams are away. Like I never feel good about guys in priority lineups that are away. I'm very much.
You have played so much MLS in different fantasy games that like you see somebody away and you're just like, nope, not even going to look at it.
I immediately, if I see AAA pick score for away, I'm like, no.
So ZM Star is mistaken on this last comment. Only because you don't know what happened behind the scenes. He said the disrespect of Chinzo 04 is unbelievable. So Keith sent me 04 being a AAA this week, and he's like, literally the worst player on Sorare is a AAA this week, and he scored a goal.
Well, I said he would score. I said he would score.
Mm-hmm.
I said I want to plug this into cap 270 for the lulls, but the problem was I didn't think he had any upside still other than the decisive, and I think all he had was the decisive.
In fairness, he had 60.7, and that was with a goal. So
I considered him though too. So I made a cap 240. Like I said, I've been enjoying limiteds way too much. So I made a cap.
Not way too much. This is how you can enjoy them.
No. That was a misstatement. Like I feel like as somebody that was focusing on rares and super rares for a while, and then you show me the pick score page and the rest is history. And now we're on a show about it. I'm like having so much fun doing this and like learning players. I think I told you to. Now we probably should get to the trading thing here in a minute, but I sent you yesterday. You don't realize how many players are on Sorare until you scan the traders gallery.
It is wild. Like there is no way to ever get to a point where like you'll never get to know everyone. And when you think of that, like obviously you won't. But the number of times where you think you know so many players and then you see someone, like you go to the pick score and you find a AAA and you're like, I've never heard of this guy. And you're like, oh, he has an L40 of 62. Why don't I know this guy? And you're just like, yeah.
The guy in your all-star lineup, that the Bundesliga 2 defender that drops 100 for you, we didn't know of his existence a week and a half ago.
I certainly did not. No,
I did not. And I mean, the crazy thing about the chat in here too is last week, I don't know if you saw the comments, but somebody was like saying, "Oh, well, he's out of contract." And I'm like, "How do you know this?
Yeah.
How do you know about Patrick Manka's contract?"
Yeah. They're like, "Oh yeah, I just live next to the stadium. That's how I know." Yeah, wrong captain to this one.
I did tell you I loved Hoffman, like because you have a very complicated relationship with Jonas Hoffman. Like
it just feels like the guy never bangs when he should, and he bangs when he shouldn't.
Do you remember what my response to you was, though?
I don't.
He's at home. It's okay.
You say that, but if you told me he had a hat trick at Bayern earlier this year, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, Blue Tomatoes is saying the same thing. Look at home and away. I'm not even going to look. I believe both of you. I'm sure he's great. I'm sure he's great.
And Blue Tomatoes, I didn't actually know. Like in my head, everybody is AAA at home in the summer.
Everyone's AAA at home.
They at least have a chance.
So I just want to go back to 04 for a second. For those of you who don't recognize this name and watch or listen to Sorare data content regularly, Sean pointed out that Chinoso 04 has forward cards and defender cards. And his defender cards are literally the worst cards on the platform. And apologies for those listening, because I have up on the screen his score graph. This is the forward, where you can see he has never scored more than 68. And in the last year, he has, 34 possible appearances, 14 starts. And he has 5 games over 42.
As a forward. I'm going to take the DNPs out just to make the graph look a little easier to play. Looks like his bench appearances, like he's basically played 30 of the last 30 games. He has 5 goals. And again, he has never scored more than 68 as a forward. As a defender. But his cards are mostly defenders.
Right. He has how many? He has 25 of 30 games where he has scored 36 or below.
It's amazing.
And of those, what did I say? 25? 23 of them have been below 30. And these are, I mean, he is playing full minutes here, like for the most part. I guess he had a bunch of sub appearances as well. But he is a classic, like -25, -30. This game, he had -38 AA. I love seeing guys who should be below 0. And so last week, Keith was like, I think I have to play 04. And I'm like, how on earth do you get there? And he scored a goal.
So do you know what the best part I just noticed on this last one too? He capped out at 60 and had -4 for his all around with a clean sheet.
In a clean sheet, yeah. You're right. I bet this is
It'll be the forward. It'll show the forward.
Yeah, this will be a forward. Ah, well. Yeah. So he's awful. And but if you played him last week, he obviously his 60 was much greater than his 30s.
Well, he outscored Morato. They had similar L15s, and he outscored Morato. So like, if you went on, like, let's just say that the rest of that lineup bangs, this is going to kind of be a little bit DFS. But there was like a great like 1v1 distinguisher, like how to break the chalk, because 04, you look at his scores, who would ever play this versus the Benfica center back was definitely like the sharper play. But if you're trying to get off chalk, try to get off of popularity, that would have been a good way to do it. And there you go. So that's an interesting question.
Yeah, like chalk and popularity are like definitely more DFS terms that we don't think
less
about.
Important less important.
But I do think it actually was important, at least last week in 270. Not that we were seeing a bunch of people use like the same 5-player lineups. Like a lot of DFS contests, it's like who everyone is playing. Like you could probably guess all 8. It's 8, right? I don't even remember anymore. But on Sorare, it's like a lot tougher for that many people to land on the exact same 5 lineups. So Johannes was asking, do you think a flat 60 score is good enough in limited? And
cat modes, potentially.
My response was like, good enough for what?
Yeah.
Like you could probably win a reward. Sure. Do you want to win a star? No chance.
Well, no.
That's true in rare too, I think.
Well, I'm going to disagree with that too, because look at your performance in All-Star. And, let's just take the ceiling. So let's just pretend this is cat mode, though. And we had Odysseus, and we used 04 for salary saving. And then we rounded out with, like, Bruno, give me 100 forward. I mean, Messi and, Hoffman. Mm-hmm. And that fits under the cap because 04 was so low. Then, yeah, like, if you nailed the rest of the superstar pick, the reason that my lineup didn't get there was because Ramos just did 60 and Promes did like 59 without a decisive.
Yeah.
I mean, if I get a decisive for proms, I got a rare card. I was in the top 40. And essentially, I got 57 from Murato, my cheap guy. So I think it is, but I think you have to just be realistic that you have to nail everything else.
Yeah. Yep.
You got 49th with a 34 from your keeper.
And 36 away from winning.
Right.
37.
Let's be real, an obvious keeper that could have swapped in there. Like if you just said, look, I'm going to spend whatever, I love the rest of my lineup, you're buying Odysseus. And like, it wasn't even a second question.
No, it was not. Not a question, that is. Wonder what, let's see, who the most popular one in All-Star. I assume, like, I kind of assume it would be, this is still...
Yes, it's a refresh.
There we go.
Hatanaka.
It's crazy that Hoffman and Manka were
as popular as they were.
As popular as they were, and I had both of them.
That's crazy.
Can I go back? Here we go.
So Laird, that's what we need to know. We had to be back into limiteds to realize that Manka, everybody knew, was an absolute smasher.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it looks like Bilo was the number one goalie in All-Star Limited, and then Odysseus was 2, which
makes sense.
I think,
because they were a huge favorite. Fire and Arbor were a favorite at home.
Yep. So the point of today's show is what to do after you've bought all of these limiteds, and we kind of alluded to it last week. I had mentioned Basil Bot, who I've used a few times, and just that's the easiest way to at least trade your limited cards. Well, I guess you could sell them too, but we've talked about when you decide to just kill the lineup and just offer it during the game week, and then I wasn't going to completely blow up not your strategy, but what you did.
That's fine.
But you were basically like, hey, do I trade these or do I just keep lowering the floor? Because that's what happens when everyone starts to sell these or try to sell these things.
Let me go a little bit deeper on that, specifically too, because of how the trading bots work. Okay, and you guys have mentioned this before, but I found this out like for sure trying to do some of these, because Basilbot got a card I really wanted late in the night last night. The Marlon Smasher dude from Brazil that just gets 100s every single time. And he got one of those cards. I'm like, perfect. I've been looking to offload this. There's the card. I can use that this summer. It's going to be great. And the floor was, and he only had it for like 10 minutes. And I checked it an hour later and it still didn't change. But the floor was like $84. But the last 7 days of trading was like 65.
God, I hate that.
And the bot used 84.
Sure. Yeah. Like,
but it wasn't listed yet. It was still like I got it right after transfer in progress, and I'm like, okay, let me do the quick math. Here's what I need to submit. I submitted it back. Sends me a counter offer right away, and I'm like, oh gosh, I think that's using the floor for him, and it is. So that was like one thing that caught me on the bots was that it's the floor. Like you guys have said this before, it's the floor or the last 7, whichever's higher, or last 3. And on the side for your valuation it's the floor or the last 7 or last 3, whatever's lower.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I think people get upset about how, and it's not just these bots, it's like even the traders who just do it manually, that they're like, I can't believe this 120%. Why would anyone do this? Blah, blah, blah. We still all do it. But I love when people bring that up. They're like, well, they're just taking the highest value for their side and lowest for mine. And it's like,
they should.
And that's why they do it. And people
because I wanted an answer right away and I wanted to get this deal done. And I didn't want to have to go to 97 people. But anyhow, so let me just explain like what we did, like the concept of like the discussion for the rest of the show was essentially I DM Laird like right after the game week ended. I want to say like 10:30, ended at 10 our time, and was like, hey, so I got all these cards, for the sake of the show and just the sake of my own sanity, I don't want like 1,000 limited cards in my gallery. Like I want to get like in and out of these cards once they're not useful. And because I bought the European guys for $270, those guys are not useful for a couple more months. So I'm like, I want them out. I don't really care that I'm going to take a little bit of a loss on them. I want them out. So what do you think? I asked you as a theory. I said, what do you think is better, to list and become the new floor, like at or below what the last, couple days averages are, or go to a bot right away? And I told you my thought process, and I ran out of time, so I just listed them all. My thought process was, they're not going to sell fast enough for that floor to not get undercut. And now when I finally have time later that night and I go back to try to trade them, I'm getting undercut by the floor.
The floor's already much lower.
Bot is looking at things and going, I know you posted Grimaldo for $55, but because somebody else saw you post for 55 and wanted to race to the bottom, now the valuation being used was 45. So I gave up effectively $10 in trading power. And the answer has all been traded.
So I don't think if you're doing it right away, I think you have to trade.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Which is weird, because it would think like, oh, I should just sell right away. So this actually kind of goes back. It's like reminding me when I was thinking of selling the hordes of limiteds I have. And this is really funny how we're like, so we're going to buy limiteds every week. The last thing I want is to sit on a bunch of limiteds.
Right.
Let's do a whole show about this. But anyway, so the reason why I got rid of all of them at the same time, which is also why I think trading makes the most sense with these cards, is let's say you bought 10 of them. You wanted to play All-Star and Cap 240 or 270 last week, whatever it is. So you're sitting on like a lot of cards and you're like, all right, I'm going to post them all for the floor. I'll undercut the floor. I just want these cards out. There's nothing worse than when like 3 of them sell and then you're just stuck with 7. And it's like, you go into it, you're like, I want them gone. And going to a trader, which obviously you're basically saying, I'm going to give up the 20% now instead of just constantly lowering the floor. Because like you mentioned, these are a bunch of cards that nobody, for utility wise, nobody wants these cards right now.
And that was the problem with these specific cards. And I think that's where you have to make a valuation on this too, where I'm not saying that the answer is always trade. You have a Carl's Gill that you buy. Carl's Gill is still going to be sought after in the weeks to come. And we see those values even go up. I sent you 2 of the J League guys that I bought for 240, and both went up. And I bought those jokers like 15 minutes before the deadline when I FOMO'd in. I'm like, why am I not playing cash?
Best time to buy cards.
Let's go. I'm like, I got off a conference call. I'm like, I got 15 minutes. I'm going to build a lineup. But those cards went up in value because both guys smashed.
Yeah. I think, well, like you said last week or going into last week, you're like, I don't want to buy cards that have 1 week of utility. Even though you're like buying them just for this week, meaning they have the great matchups this week. That's why you're buying them. But yeah, if they have a longer utility run, then obviously.
Then you have more chances of like the quote unquote that a lot of people love. Like when I got into sort of like, all right, let me invest in this guy low because I see a string of fixtures and he's going to smash his face off and I'm just going to be worth more because we all chase form. So I think when there isn't a demand, that's when you kind of have to make, like, it's a multi-part process. You have to evaluate the demand. Like if you looked at like Grimaldo's price chart and Odysseus, there was a lot of demand because of Cap 270. It ramped up. Nobody cared about them for a while because the season was over and everybody's like, Cap 270, just like me. And then soaring back down. So that was where you had that higher elevated number because of the last sales were before the deadline. You should have traded off of that higher valuation before the undercutting started. And that was like I knew it, but I also needed to like prove it because I think
I needed to watch my cards go down for
I mean, I'm very, very fortunate on Sorare that I have the ability to play around and like learn a little bit of this because of, doing very well in the game and having all those things that like I could afford like for my own curiosity to see. And Laird, I got no offers on these cards. And we're talking Odysseus, We're talking Grimaldo. We're talking Gonzalo Ramos. At the time, Quincy Promes, before he decided to, what was the little meme going around? Oh my God, why am I blanking on Walter White's character?
It is Walter White.
I know, but Heisenberg. But now people putting the Ten Hag.
So just everybody was commenting earlier. I don't actually think he's been arrested. Like everyone's like, oh, he's been arrested. He's prison. Like he has not been arrested. He's just been charged with a new crime in another country. He's staying in Russia forever.
Did it? So with that too. Let's not. This is not a show about Quincy Promes issues, but like these were
not legal advice.
Yeah, this is like, I guess why I wanted to play around with it. These are legit like top scores on the platform that should have value, but nobody wanted those cards, and everybody was trying to get off of them.
Yeah, so Mike Bass was saying, other than the Euro season ending, why are Benfica players not worth holding?
Well, Grimaldo,
there is no other.
What's that?
There is no other. The Euro season's ending. That's it. That's why people want out.
Well, especially in the limited world, which I think is really important as we introduce this show, and we have a lot of people that maybe don't even play in limiteds or people that are new, is understanding like the limited market, rare market, super rare market are very different. Because the limited market is all about what can you do for me lately, and what can you do for me in the next week, 2 weeks. Whereas we don't see that.
I mean, there are like 15 Odysseus limiteds available on the market, and that's after 4 have sold in the last 24 hours.
They're all declining. They're all declining. You see Kaiser, our friend Kaiser, and they're palling one. Just saw that. Down one more.
Yep.
But then you look at 3 days ago, $91 in auction leading up to cap 270 to the last sale being 76, and all Odysseus did to deserve
again
is drop 80.
Right. Yeah. So what did you get for yours?
Oh, weird stuff. But I saw ETH.
Oh, okay.
But at that time,
$47 and 3 cards you'll never use.
But look at the ETH plus 4s to now. But by the way, I noticed this is what made me do the deal. Canales, AAA this week. I'm using him.
Okay.
Takes all the sets for Batiste. They're at home. I think it's actually somewhat of an important game. I don't know what a Jensen Selt is. I was actually going to send it. I thought his name, this is not a joke. I thought his name was See It, and I was going to send it to our friend See It, Save It as just a meme gift. But then I saw Selt. I saw Selt. I'm like, that's not as funny.
No, it's not. I will say that I think the Grimaldo price, the why isn't Grimaldo worth having? And I think the transfer speculation on Grimaldo is why people don't want any part of it.
Go to my Grimaldo sale. I think was a good friend of mine who was much sharper than any of us will ever, either of the two of us will ever be. Tendril Storm. I told him to get off of his proms when the cocaine thing happened, and I saw what he did, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have thought of that. So then I went and did it with the Grimaldo. He traded proms for 2 Reynosos from one of the bots.
Oh, he got 2 Reynosos also.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's a really good idea. Let's go ahead and do that. And if anybody doesn't know, we saw Reynoso news came out that he trained fully yesterday. And
looked great.
I mean,
best shape of his life.
Hold on, do we expect anything like? I would love a manager to come out like he trained. We were so glad to have him. He looked like shit.
The line was something different though, and it was something like it was so much better quality than we've seen, or it was something that was just like he's so much better than everyone else we have, and it's good to have him back. Like it was that kind of energy there.
This is actually the better part. It was like he's been gone for so long, we forgot what a world-class player looked like.
It's exactly what it feels like. Callum and David Alves are saying Grimaldo is confirmed. Where's he even going?
Bayer, not Bayern.
Oh, Leverkusen. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Which who knows if Wirtz stays, if he's has any set ability. I doubt on that team he's taking PKs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at least in these situations, it's like you have the downside risk of trading early versus trying to sell early. The downside risk on the trading is lower because if you're just adamant about selling, you're just at the mercy of everybody undercutting, and particularly with these bots. And obviously, you're at the mercy of whatever they have. Like they don't have every card available, and
That's the
Pavel, I
hardest
feel
part.
like, is more unreasonable lately but maybe it's just because I'm so used to the bots like responding immediately and like countering reasonably.
Right.
But it does feel like that's the best way to get full value, like full 80% value before your card is actually 70% value of what it was if you're trying to sell.
On top of that too, I don't think I put this in the message to you, but I do think it's worth when you're evaluating these like 120% bots, you're paying 5% to get out of your card.
Also, yep.
Market fees. So like if you're just like being tactical on the math, it's actually only 15%. It's kind of how I was justifying it in my head too, because I'm having to pay 5% to Sorare to get the ETH.
And realistically, the value that you're getting for your card is probably higher than when you're going to sell it anyway. Like you're probably getting
full price, unless. But here's when people do pay full price: is if you're happen to get somebody on the ascent or like in good form, or you could use pick score. I was trying to use this and I ran out of time, but I thought it was a really good idea to use pick score, see who the top ranked players coming up for All-Star was, and then see if the bots had those guys, because we know that there might be a run on those cards as we get closer to lock. So that was an idea that I thought made some sense too.
Yeah, the only hesitation I have there is just that pick scores kind of update throughout the week.
It does.
But if you are the first player ranked, then you're probably not dropping to the 100th player ranked in the pick score.
So I did notice one thing, Laird, too. I don't know if people were just like effing around or what they were doing, but I looked at pick score legitimately like at 10:05 yesterday, like 5 minutes after the lock. And there was like a goalie. He's not going to be there anymore, but it was a goalie that does not start. I had to double take and go check that he wasn't going to start. Somebody put that there was only one prediction, was that he was going to start, and he was at a 0, and it rated him as a AAA because,
right, of course,
because now, so you got to, like we talked about, IKB.
Do your own research.
Do your own research. Make sure that you use the tool for what it is. Know that it's just going off of what information it has, and don't be like duped into something. But then like right after it was like a legitimate player. But the first guy on, I'm like, wait, because I'm like you. I sent you a screenshot of the defenders. There was like a run on AAAs that they were all like $5 and under. I'm like, this is awesome.
Looking at the episode ready for next game week.
You're just on forwards, and those are pretty accurate, by the way. There's a lot of Europe though still on it.
Yeah, somebody in the chat wrote that Messi is flying to Saudi Arabia today, which is funny since he has a match this weekend.
And we're 4 hours removed from the rumor that Inter Miami is closing in on a deal to loan him back. Like, it's kind of like,
I think that might be my favorite one of all time.
Oh, I saw that. I sent it on one of our private chats, and just I was like feeding the baby and just dying laughing. Like the rumor is that an MLS club signs this unbelievably massive deal and then loans him to Barcelona. It's just like unbelievable.
Right. Like, we've gotten to the point now where FC Barcelona have to get a workaround with Major League Soccer to get Lionel Messi.
So just, this is way off topic, but in my head, I was also like, and Inter Miami, you have to take Busquets from us because we can't have this guy laying around here.
Right. Yeah.
How amazing would that be?
So where was I going with this?
I don't know. You
So-
brought up pick scores.
Right. So when you like, the first thing I look for right away is, and again, I don't think that the pick scores are like gospel, but man, they really help.
They're
Then
really
you just
good.
like look down the list. Gustav Isaacson, what is that? Midtjylland, maybe?
Yep.
Is the top player, literally the top player for All-Star Limited this week.
And then his midfield is the third.
And then, yeah, exactly. So that's a good one. The floor price, I'm not sure which card it is. I don't even want to look. But the thing that I just immediately do is go to floor price, and I'm like, okay, $45, $64, 407. There's Mbappe. 52, 10. Alexander Mendy. Then I'm like, who is this guy? Let's click in. And like, this is how you just get lost.
Yeah.
Obviously, in Ligue 2, he is on a banger right now. 4 goals and an assist in his last 3. And yeah, he's $10. Let's go.
Never heard of him.
I think I probably heard of someone else named Alexander Mendy, and it's not him. Popular.
Isn't that the Man City guy?
No.
I know.
That guy's
no. Yeah.
Speaking of Prison FC.
Chelsea guy. The other Mendy.
So, oh my gosh, and we have Guido Burstaller here for $5.60. Also with a AAA, an L15 of 61.
With 1 game left.
He looks like Kevin Van Vliet.
Oh my gosh.
He's a poor man's Kevin Van Vliet. He's only scored in like 9 straight instead of 11 or 12.
I think I won this dude a while back when he was. I think
I did too. That's a nice run, though.
That's a really nice run. I do say, can I just make like an overall like limited comment too? Though, can you go back to his graph? So like the one thing I think is like really important to like know with like different competitions that I've seen, and this goes to all scarcities, but like he's AAA because of putting up like those good scores and things like that, and having a chance to score and all those. But like in limited, in really any competition, like why we really don't love just strikers that don't get AA is that you don't, of course.
Shout out to Surface winning Guido yesterday and selling him for $6.
Congrats on your sale. But
the floor is lower now.
And the floor is lower. But those type of players, I think you really do need to do an evaluation of their actual upside, because like in limited, from your forward spot, unless it's like in cap and the guy, this is a 61 cap, so it's high. But like, let's say that it was like a 40 and he could get you a 65. That's fine. Outperforming by 25, that'll do you good. But in like an all-star competition, a guy that's has his ceiling in like the 65, 70 range because he doesn't have AA, that's not a guy you want. Like that's not no, right? Like it's like you want the decisive, but a decisive and only getting 70 doesn't, like if you have too many of those, you're going to go
decisive to get to 70.
Well, I think you sent this to me, or I saw on like Twitter at one point, somebody, I think it was in like the common divisions, showed like 5 decisives. They had a lineup with 5 decisive, a goalie clean sheet, defender score, but everybody was like between 60 and 70, and they didn't win an award. And it's like, this game's impossible. It's like, no, like you don't, those guys, none of them had prerequisite upside to get like 60s and things like that across the board. Don't do any good other than like making you thresholds. Like even this guy is like doing great, but I don't see, there's 199, but 76, 70, 71, 70. You guys have talked about strategy.
71 and 70 with a single decisive, I think is fine.
It's okay, but I guess to me, it's like that's almost like the minimum. Like, I was talking to Sean in a different chat, about like the Hani Mukhtar hate that we've had for a while. And it's because that guy he's awesome, but he'll put up 2 decisives and he's on set pieces. And then you look at his score and you're like, how did he only get 77?
74, yeah.
I don't think it's outlandish to say he's the best player in the MLS. And you're just like looking, you get double decisive.
Sounds outlandish. I'm sorry. You just went from saying you had a conversation with PSU fans too, and then saying that Hani Mukhtar is the best player in MLS. This is what happens.
Sean and I these days rarely agree. we disagree on stuff a lot more than we agree.
I'm surprised he even talks to you if you're willing to say something like that out loud.
But
it's a limited show. He'll never even see this.
Yeah, but it's not a card I own because I do agree with him in the sake of like, if I'm getting a guy that's like at his price at, he's just more decisive dependent than I would like. Like back to, if we're going to stay on PSU brand, Carlos Heel, where when he gets a decisive, we're expecting 100.
Yeah.
And that's like the big difference. And I think that is really important to note in limiteds when you're looking at some of these guys, like utilize pick score to help pull the stuff away, but like don't just get like drawn to all these green scores that are smack dab in the middle. Like Van de Veen's is great, or it's like 71, 70, 70, 70. Because the moment that he doesn't decisive, that's 40 and you're dead. Like you have no shot.
He's gonna decisive every time now.
Right. And look, his ceiling was this last one, but like you draw a line and those are great, but every single time he doesn't decisive, like in limited, that type of guy probably took you out of a reward or took you into like a tier 5 that you're not going to be able to sell.
No, I think that's honestly, I think that's you're way too dramatic. I think you can win plenty of good rewards with this. I don't think you're getting a star, but getting 75 from one of your players is good enough to get a reward.
Again, but would you rather have? Okay, this is no. I almost shunned it, and I was almost.
Yeah, I was just about to say that to you.
Well, because so what I was actually about to say was, I was going to walk you into it. Was, would you rather have Van de Veen or Antoine Griezmann? And you're like, right. Van de Veen for $10.
Yeah. No, I think it's.
That's fair.
I don't think it's. Yeah, it is crazy to see this and have 0 games of 90 points.
On Hanny, the Vitaly's comment, literally how Sean and I both ended like our thing was literally like he would be the most dominant, like one of he would be a must-have for America players if he was a forward, where he probably should be because he plays a ton of striker.
I mean, it's like basically where he plays, yeah. Let's see.
I'm
so he has an L40. He has an L40 of 65 as a midfielder and 70.1 as a forward. Like that's crazy.
Lost possessions and things like that.
An L40 of 70 is nuts. That's like
he still bangs. I'm like, as I see this graph, I'm just like, I kind of want to like take back my statement. he's so ridiculous.
No, Messi's L40 76. That makes me feel better. Well, this graph this graph exists, but like those scores have never been scored by Mukhtar because they're forwards.
Right.
So there you go.
I don't know. I guess Laird, like just to like wrap up like our convo on those like ceilings. I'm more, I guess the point I was trying to make, I'm more weary of the guys that are on these huge decisive runs, don't have much AA, because when it ends, it's going to end really badly and it's going to result in like done lineups versus, you have a Messi. And I know that those are really bad comparisons. I can't think of another set guy for just to like bring up, but you have some of these guys that are on runs but have 20 AAs. Like I'd much rather do a little bit of digging, find those guys in Bundesliga 2, in Argentina, in Brazil, than this guy like a Van de Veen that's on this insane run that when he doesn't decisive, I know it's going to be a 44 and my lineup's wrecked. I guess that's more where I'm at, and with central strikers specifically.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it feels like there's only downside when it comes to the all-around scores with guys like that.
Yeah.
Because they just tend not to do a lot. Johanneton saying, have you ever seen Messi at Barcelona? There were hundreds every game week. So that's another one. We never had that on the platform.
And we won't if it's Saudi, but if you let Inter Miami sign it, we will have it.
Yeah, let's not.
Oh my God, it's so.
So Messi had 41 appearances.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Let me take this off. I don't know why he would have subbed twice. But he had let's see, it's 41 games. So an L41 of 84 when he was there.
Can you do a Gator thing here? Can we take aways off and just do home?
86.
Yes, look at that extra 2 points for the home field advantage.
So 22 games. What? Oh, wait, hold on. Let me take his sub appearance out. 21 starts, 12 of which he scored at least 90. And actually, I think 90.
Why you traded all your limiteds for Messi, rare.
There you go. Yeah, and now he's going to go to Inter Miami and go to Barcelona, or we get Saudi covered. It's pretty simple.
the Saudi scores, if he goes to Saudi, I think the Saudi scores will make this look low. Like, because this is in La Liga.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with that.
Median is 100.
Yeah. Might be here.
And that's why the median sometimes is not the best way to track these things.
I think you could argue the median actually is the right way, but anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
he's not going.
So anything else on the? Oh, I'll just say one more thing on the trading as we're ending. So I do think though too, if like you're getting off of the, like if you're trying to, somebody had made a comment like, how do you get back? Like if we were doing like a $35 challenge, how do you get back to like where you want to be at? So if you did something like that, like going to Europe as the season ended, trading out to like America or Asia, where you know that utility is going to keep going, that either you can recover your utility in terms of your own ETH rewards or your ETH yielding and like the cap competitions, or I think from copying Storm, trading into like Reynoso, who has a potential to pop as a 0 L15 here in a few weeks, or just be one of the top 10 players in the MLS who's been out for a while and who might be a little bit undervalued compared to like, I looked at as similar players and just like those ilk of players, and they're much more. Trading to somebody like that who maybe you think that has the ability to take off is a way that you can kind of recover that margin that you paid to the trader.
Yeah. So the way that I was looking at that, particularly as I tried to get rid of some of mine, which I still have, of course, if you're able to trade 5 for 1 or 8 for 1 or 10 for 2, it's a lot easier to sell 1 card or 2 cards than 10 cards. And so obviously you're taking kind of a haircut when you trade. You're not going to get full value, whatever the hell that actually means when you're trying to do it. But if you're able to turn that into a card that you're like, actually, this card might go up soon, you can at least experience that upside, and you're not sitting there game week after game week like, man, I really wish I could have sold these 7 cards instead of just going with 1 and hoping for the best there.
Yeah, or like the pick score idea. I think that I might try that it's Wednesday, so that will work. On like a card or 2 I have left, I might just try to like see if I can parcel through some pick scores and some guys that are way up for matchup. I'm going to use like the America or the Asia. I know we always use All-Star. I'm going to sort by America or Asia, so I just get those results and don't get teased by a $10 League 2. I don't know how to say it. Was it Duh. I don't get teased by one of those guys. It's just a week and I'll trade it. But maybe have those guys that could pop off. Like on one of my trades was Proms when the cocaine thing came out. I immediately was looking at the traders and see anything, and then I looked at Powell and I saw the Natsuda, who I'll just say this real quick. He was pictured in training, but he had a surprise DMP on the weekend. And if you look at his price graph, he shot down because of the DNP. People worried that it was like something bigger, and he was already back this morning. So now all of a sudden the price already recovered. So I'm already on the better side of the Powell deal in less than 24 hours. So that's another thing you can do, is if you see a guy that you happen to know something on, especially in limited, I've noticed every guy, because I was quite like what's Vancouver's goalkeeper's name? Takioka,
yeah.
His price plummeted for a little bit.
Yeah.
When Hazel started.
Yeah.
Not on the rare, super rare levels, though. Nobody sold off on the limited levels. All of a sudden, you saw a little bit of this. And it was very well known that was just a rotation, like fixture congestion thing. Like he's not losing his job. So, again, you can use some of your own knowledge there.
I will add to that when you're dealing with traders and bots, on their side, there is absolutely no consideration of how much this card will be worth in 3 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, a month. All they care about is what is this card worth right now, and they're going to trade on that. So like Reynoso, like Natsuda, if you think there's a reason for those cards to be more than they are today in whatever the time frame is, that's an advantage you have over them, and take advantage of.
Yep. And you can actually utilize too in those situations like a sell off. If you Guzan hit the bots hard when he had the MCL tear. Like if you went into like a Basel or a Sirhis or Foul Gallery, it was like Guzan season. Everybody was just selling off. And guess what? It flipped really quick. Like in terms of he's back. So I mean, you can utilize that if you know that the value's gotten just like way low. Like if you wanted to do, Guzan season like that, you thought that he was going to recover real quick, you could have made a ton. And maybe gotten off some cards that you didn't want because the bots had him.
I was gonna end it here, but I have to show this price graph on Brad Guzan.
Yeah.
This is a 3-month price chart where on, let's see, on March 31st, he was about $30. And on April 12th, he bottomed out around $4.50. And now he's back around $30.
And I know this is a limited show, but I got a super rare Guzan for $150 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
I
mean, this is like one of the, I don't mean this show to be about trading, but if you're ever seeing an opportunity like where there's a complete overreaction and you think there's just even a chance that it is an overreaction, like that's ways to really make some margin if you're trying to start from, like a road to glory, or you're starting with a low budget and you want to escalate. Like those are like, I saw somebody put they hate trading with all their passion, and I get it. Or I hate trading with my entire soul. But this is a game that is ultimately about improving your lineups and trying to make winning lineups. And those type of opportunities absolutely will help you out. So sometimes you need if you know something that others don't,
dive in.
Yeah.
That's not financial advice. Thank you everybody for joining us. If you guys have not hit the like button on the video, if you could please do so. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Let's see. Today is Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. We changed the schedule up a little bit. Blue Tomato said I wouldn't call the Guzan situation as an overreaction. I mean, that chart looks like it was a slight overreaction. But anyway, Thursday is office hours. Friday, Sorare Andrews this week. And I might just take a week off topic and as a tribute to Chris Brady. So thank you to everybody for joining us. And if there are any specific topics about limited cards that you would like covered on this show, feel free to reach out to me. You can leave a comment on the video. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew M. Laird, and we'd be happy to discuss those. So thank you to everyone. And this week.